you have either met in some capacity or have heard of me and Ben. We are the people behind the website Republic Underground. Ben founded it earlier this year, and I joined it. The idea was to give an opportunity to voices to voice their perspectives without censorship and to explore global foreign policy, foreign affairs, security issues in a way that mainstream media does not, to give fair, balanced coverage and to look beyond the surface. So almost immediately we ran into the situation with Azerbaijan. The war started very soon after the website really took off. So we found ourselves writing a lot about this issue. And through this experience, we managed to meet a lot of journalists and other writers. And I think today is finally the day that we're finally coming together in person to get to know each other, to discuss what's going on, to share the information to open-minded members of the media and academia who want to learn a little bit more about what's going on. And I'll let Ben introduce himself.
I am a journalist. I'm a writer. I'm a tech guy and a defense guy. A man of many hats. Up until recently, I was not part of the military anymore. However, this situation with Azerbaijan and Armenia kind of plunged me back into the fray. So a little bit about Republic Underground. Like Irina was saying, it was launched to give journalists from all over the world a place to write their perspectives. We take submissions from everybody. It's not like the Wall Street Journal where we only take the elite or the New York Times. We have quite a bit of coverage from the technological standpoint of everything. Just to give you an idea, we had an average monthly view of 65 million views during this conflict. And that was unique views, and that's not measuring the people that came back several times. And all in all, we're looking at about 135 million views throughout the process. So we're establishing ourselves as a media outlet for information that's coming out of the Caucasus. It gets to be a little tricky when you're dealing with this situation, and that's why I'm glad that everybody is here and participating in this meeting. It's high time that we all sat down and had a discussion about how we can contribute with each other and how we can get the voices heard, because that was the entire point of this project to start with. There will be plenty of time for questions, and feel free to reach out to me personally as well. I will make sure that all of you have the ability to communicate with me even after this meeting. So this isn't just a once and done thing. You can reach out to me if you're looking for a military expert, if you're looking for defense technology, any of that stuff, I'm available. So I'd kind of like everybody to go around and introduce themselves so that if we don't know each other by the end of this meeting, we will know each other.
Well, okay. My name is Frank, and I'm an academic teacher. I have 3 doctoral degrees in biology, healthcare management, and political science. I published 5 books that related to business, and I'm a political analyst. I'm a non-resident research fellow at BISA Center, and I'm interested in politics that related to the Middle East.
Thank you. I guess if you don't mind, I'll also introduce myself. First of all, it's a really pleasure for me to see all of you guys. My name is Maria Han Hoyskaya Martignoli. I'm an Azerbaijani citizen, living and working in Geneva in Switzerland. And I am actually not a journalist, not a historian. I'm a member of Azerbaijani diaspora here in Geneva and in whole Switzerland. And basically what I am, like, as I said, I'm far from politics or all these that stuff that has been going on prior to the war. So my what I'm doing in Geneva, besides my work and citizenship, is I'm an Azerbaijani national dance teacher in Geneva. So what I'm doing here is that I promote Azerbaijani culture, dances through concerts. I participate in almost like everywhere I can, besides my regular time job, in different cultural events. And I'm a very active member, culturally active member of the Azerbaijan community here in Switzerland. So, and here I was asked to join this this meeting that we have here today from our Azerbaijani community here in Geneva, because they consider me to be a very active member who is not indifferent to what's been happening in my home country. And I also come from Ganja, and as you know, it's one of the cities that has been greatly damaged during the war. So I consider myself not a journalist, not a political person, but as a regular common folk representative who is not indifferent to what's happening in my home country and how the world reacts to this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, perhaps I could introduce myself. My name is Nesrin Can. I'm half Finnish, half Turkish. I was born in Finland, but both countries are my home countries. I've spent a lot of time in Turkey as well. I used to be a special advisor to Finnish cabinet ministers on foreign and security policy and the matters of the EU. And also I was a member of the peace negotiation team between Israel and Palestine during the Second Intifada, led by Antonio Guterres, when Yasser Arafat was still alive and Fatah was in power on the Palestinian side. I'm kind of a veteran in Finnish politics in the sense that I was in politics for 15 years in Finland. And I've been to Azerbaijan many times. The first time was 1999 when I was working as a volunteer in a camp in Sheki, in the mountainous region in the northern Azerbaijan. And since I'm from Finland, we have a very long relationship with Russia as well. And I've been dealing a lot with Russia, especially with the neighboring region, the Karelian Republic of Russia. And that's one thing, I think, which gives some perspective to this conflict, that like in southern Caucasus and Caucasus, you've always had to deal with Russia. In Finland, we've had the same. Yeah, this is pretty much it. So I could perhaps introduce myself that I'm a foreign security policy analyst and a peace mediator. And I've run a wider Black Sea region roundtable earlier, where also these parties of conflict were members of, but that was on the youth level many, many years ago. But so I've been interested in the region for a very long time, and I'm really happy that this Zoom meeting was organized. So thank you for Irina and Ben and the Azerbaijani diaspora for organizing this and inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone else wants to introduce themselves, you're welcome to do so. And
perhaps I will. I don't know if it is useful or not. Okay.
I haven't introduced myself. My name is Yashar, and I'm from southern Azerbaijan. And following the events that is happening in Azerbaijan, just like any southern Azerbaijani, that means all of them, any Azerbaijani actually. So I'm interested, this is my first time to join here and I'm interested in what you are saying. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abul Bahaduri, Abul Faz Bahaduri in Azerbaijani. I am also from southern Azerbaijan. I was born in Tabriz. I'm a designer and artist, but the reason I am in United States in first place was actually, the cause of it was Karabakh conflict, the first Karabakh conflict. I was actually living in Manchester, England. That's where I did my education. And I was writing articles. There was a huge gap, a journalistic gap for what was happening there. And I was writing articles in some British press, and Voice of America contacted me, hired me, and brought me to the United States. So I was working for 9 years in early 90s, still in the heavy years of the first war. And I was working as international broadcaster, writing in Azerbaijani, and plus American news. I mean, most of it was Voice of America. Most of it was about U.S. news, but we also worked really hard to bring the news of Azerbaijan from Azerbaijan to Azerbaijan in Azerbaijani, because there weren't anything. There were not much local connections with the outside world. So that's how I ended up in US. I'm not doing reporting and broadcasting anymore. I'm just doing my art as my main work, but this whole thing brought me back. It's just sucked me up into all this information about war deal. So I'm very active. I try to be active with on social media at least.
Wonderful. Well, I'm very happy that you're here.
Maxime, I think you wanted to win?
Just briefly, just a few words. So as you see, my name is Maxime Goin. I'm a historian. I worked on the Armenian issue since for more than 10 years. I devoted my doctoral dissertation to the relations between the French Republic and the Armenian communities from 1918 to 1923. But actually, I started to work in the archive much earlier because not everything began in 1918, and I continued to work after. So basically, I'm interested in this issue, considering Armenian nationalism and its relation with the big powers, plus Turkey and Azerbaijan, of course. And I see the current events in the historical perspective. That's very briefly my angle of perception.
Thank you so much. Is anyone else? Okay, so if there's no one who wants to speak at the moment, Ben will play a short video, which will basically give everyone a bit of the background on what's going on. Many of you may be familiar, but in case there's someone who isn't, it just gives historical context to the contemporary events, which we will address after the video. Then Dr. Frank Musmore will give a presentation related to the topic, and then we'll open it up to questions, discussion, comments. We hope to make it lively and interactive.
At the heart of the hostilities is Karabakh, a region that is occupied by the armed forces of Armenia, but internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan. After the 1994 exodus of ethnic Azerbaijanis, the area has acquired an exclusive Armenian character. Peace talks have been ongoing for 27 years, but no shred of progress has thus far been made. The current war is thus the result of diplomatic failure. So let's go over the events that led to this point and then see how the hostilities are progressing. I'm your host Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. Digital life makes things easier, but it also leaves you exposed. NordVPN is an affordable and user-friendly tool that hides your IP and thereby reduces your digital footprint. The app works on mobile devices as well, which comes in handy when traveling. Just go to nordvpn.com/CaspianReport and use the promo code CaspianReport to get a discount on the premium version. One of the most common practices of Soviet authorities was gerrymandering boundaries, setting up communities against one another. According to the last Soviet survey held in 1989, Armenians accounted for 77% of the population in Nagorno-Karabakh, while Azerbaijanis accounted for 22%. However, in the 7 adjacent districts surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh, roughly 95% of the population was ethnic Azerbaijani, and the population of Lower Karabakh was 5 times that of Upper Karabakh. Regardless of the demographics, the two communities lived in peace during the Soviet era. Armenians and Azerbaijanis were friends, colleagues, neighbors. But things started falling apart in the final years of the Soviet Union. Armenia laid territorial claims against Azerbaijan, ethnic tensions erupted, and the trust that had been painstakingly constructed over the decades collapsed within weeks. Shots were fired, and insurgency took hold, and in 1992, a full-scale war ignited. The fighting was gruesome, with war crimes being committed and cities being razed to the ground. Armenian forces came out on top, and in the process, they ethnically cleansed Azerbaijanis from Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding districts. Nearly 700,000 Azerbaijanis had to abandon their homes in Karabakh to make room for 150,000 Armenians. Obviously, this brief summary does no justice to the history of the conflict, so have a look at our previous report on this topic for more. In any case, a ceasefire was signed in 1994, and peace talks started between Armenia and Azerbaijan, with Russia, France, and the United States acting as the primary mediators.
Small businesses use Melio to keep cash low. Longer and stock up for the holidays without the need to apply for a loan.
Over the years, numerous proposals were negotiated, but the most feasible roadmap is known as the Madrid Principles, introduced in 2007. That deal entails the following. First, the districts surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh are to return to Azerbaijani control. Second, Nagorno-Karabakh is granted an interim status and provided with security guarantees and self-governance. Third, a corridor is established to link Armenia to Nagorno-Karabakh. Fourth, the final status of Nagorno-Karabakh is determined through a legally binding expression of will. Fifth, all internally displaced persons and refugees are granted the right to return to their former places of residence. And finally, sixth, international security guarantees in the form of peacekeeping operations take hold across the region. Although the Madrid formula presents the most feasible roadmap towards a peaceful resolution, the exact terms of each principle has been a matter of rigorous interpretation and negotiation. The biggest disagreement is the status of Nagorno-Karabakh. Yerevan rejects Nagorno-Karabakh's subordination to Baku and wants guarantees of independence before engaging in any significant concessions. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan refuses to concede its territory and wants a phased settlement, starting with the return of its occupied districts adjacent to Nagorno-Karabakh. The core legal issue is that Armenia insists on self-determination to resolve the status of Nagorno-Karabakh, while Azerbaijan insists on maintaining its territorial integrity. The only way to combine the two is by granting self-determination within territorial integrity. That means an autonomy for Nagorno-Karabakh. We've seen similar formulas being successfully implemented across Europe, with the Åland Islands in Scandinavia acting as a point of inspiration. But skeptics argue that Armenia and Azerbaijan are nothing like Finland and Sweden, while supporters say that the formula is better than armed conflict. Regardless, in 2011, Russia proposed to start the Madrid Principles with the return of Azerbaijani districts. 5 of the 7 areas were to be returned. However, Armenia did not budge, and the negotiations have remained at a deadlock since. There were numerous attempts to revive the peace talks, but much of it was to no avail. In Armenia, the status quo had become deeply entrenched in the political landscape. Compromise, it seemed, was no longer on the table. So, in the next few years, instead of negotiating, the Armenian leadership in Nagorno-Karabakh incorporated the Azerbaijani districts into its administration. New provisional borders were drawn, new roads were constructed, and abandoned Azerbaijani settlements were given Armenian names. Meanwhile, historical sites that were located in the Azerbaijani districts were embedded on Armenian banknotes, a clear sign that Armenia was not going to leave. On top of everything, ethnic Armenians from beyond the Caucasus were brought in to settle in the former Azerbaijani towns. These dangerous, irreversible, and provocative actions illustrated that Armenia was effectively annexing the entirety of Karabakh, including the Azerbaijani districts.
I was using Google Analytics and hated it. With a Reebee, I can create any funnel.
Not surprisingly, the peace talks remained paralyzed. There were some genuine attempts to revive the negotiations, but none of it worked. Political rhetoric became increasingly belligerent on both sides. Azerbaijan warned to take back its territories by force, while Armenia threatened to take even more territories in the next war. By 2020, the negotiations had been ongoing for 27 years, with nothing to show for. Not a single village or town had been returned to Azerbaijani control, and domestic pressure from the hundreds of thousands of displaced Azerbaijanis was mounting. With the way things were, an armed conflict was inevitable. And in mid-October 2020, large-scale hostilities erupted along the line of contact. However, the noteworthy thing with the current hostilities are the unwritten rules of engagement. Since Karabakh is, without doubt or reservation, recognized as part of Azerbaijan, and since the Azerbaijanis are fighting primarily against hostile forces within the Karabakh battle space, the international borders of Armenia and Azerbaijan have remained largely free of violence. With the war being restricted to Karabakh, the conflict gains a most complicated geopolitical flavor. Russia, for example, is a military ally of Armenia and maintains a military base there. So it was expected that the Russians would come to the aid of their ally. Putin, however, has rejected to do so because the fighting is taking place not on the territory of Armenia, but in Karabakh, which belongs to Azerbaijan. So in legal terms, Russia cannot get involved as long as there is no danger to the Republic of Armenia. That explains part of the reason why Russia has remained indifferent. The other reason is that Putin detests the new Armenian Prime Minister, Pashinyan, for his anti-Russian activities within Armenia. Since coming to power in 2018, Pashinyan's government steadily replaced pro-Russian government officials with pro-Western lawmakers in an effort to diminish Armenia's reliance on Russia. However, these anti-Russian actions have raised alarm bells in the Kremlin, and the Russians have been looking to reverse the pro-Western process. Interestingly, the former President Kocharyan, who is a rival of Pashinyan and enjoys good relations with the Russian leadership, is back in the political scene. So Russia might be eyeing for a change of leadership in Yerevan. The final reason for Russia's indifference is because of its relationship with Azerbaijan, which has never been better. In fact, Azerbaijan is perhaps the only neighbor of Russia that maintains an independent foreign policy and yet is not hostile to Russia. The Kremlin wants to promote such foreign policy among its neighbors, not punish it. These 3 reasons, international boundaries, disapproval of Yerevan's policy, approval of Baku's foreign conduct, are the conditions for Russia's involvement. Meanwhile, for Iran, the situation in Karabakh presents a dilemma. Traditionally, Iran has allied with Armenia for fear of an assertive Azerbaijan. The thing is, roughly a quarter of Iran's population is ethnic Azerbaijani who live in the north of the country. To keep a watchful eye on secessionism within its borders, Iran maintains an unwritten alliance with Armenia. However, since the start of the recent hostilities in Karabakh, military equipment has been spotted being transported through Iran into Armenia. This has deeply upset the Azerbaijanis in Iran, which has resulted in protests in major Iranian cities, as well as attacks on the border checkpoint with Iran and the road connecting to it. Since these events, the Iranians have dialed back their open support for Armenia with the aim to ease social tensions in their northern provinces. That said, doing nothing is no option either. Azerbaijan operates a large fleet of Israeli drones and loitering munition and maintains deep-running political, commercial, and military ties with Israel. Should Baku succeed in retaking Karabakh, the Iranians fear that Israel would gain a strategic foothold in Azerbaijan, possibly allowing for Israeli military operations against Iran in the future. In Turkey, things are less complicated. Turks and Azerbaijanis enjoy a special relationship on all fronts. Azerbaijani pipelines go across the Turkish countryside, mutual investments are at an all-time high, and there is deep-rooted affinity at the public level. However, Turkey's attitude to the Karabakh conflict has traditionally been passive. But this changed as recently as August 2020, when the Armenian Prime Minister publicly hailed the Cephris Treaty and called for a new foreign policy that would lay territorial claims on Turkey. Big mistake, because this immediately turned Turkey into an active supportive player, much like Russia. A few weeks later, Turkey would sell a large batch of unmanned aerial vehicles to the Azerbaijani military. Now, looking at things from a macro perspective, the South Caucasus is a place where foreign policy is driven by the neighboring powers, Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Whenever the relationship between these three changes, the results immediately affect Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. With the status quo disrupted, policymakers in Baku gained the confidence to step beyond their comfort zone and pursue military objectives in Karabakh. And that war has been going in Azerbaijan's favor. In fact, military gains are evolving faster than we can produce a video on it. So here is a summary instead. Azerbaijani drones are operating with impunity over the Karabakh airspace. Its special forces have taken strategic heights, while its regular troops have taken control over the southern flank. This exponentially widens Baku's military options, including the ability to strike at the arteries of Karabakh's logistics. On the other side, things are not looking so good for Armenia. It is losing more than a dozen military vehicles a day, and the number of casualties is surging. The level of attrition is unsustainable and is rapidly diminishing Armenia's capacity for counterattacks. For example, at one point during the fighting, Armenian forces lost 33 tanks, 36 trucks, and dozens more vehicles within 48 hours. With such heavy losses, the backbone of the Armenian military is collapsing fast. Thus far, the cumulated losses amount well over $2 billion, which will take Yerevan a good decade to recover. Azerbaijan likely has just as many human casualties, but it has captured more military vehicles than it has lost. If this is a war of attrition, Azerbaijan has absolute dominance over the battlefield. By the way, these observations are not based on the official statements from either side, but on visual confirmations and geolocations by neutral parties. As of this writing, the line of contact has shifted dramatically. Azerbaijani forces are close to hugging the international border with Armenia in the south, and if they can take the strategic heights to the north, units of Azerbaijan's self-propelled artillery can shut down the Lachin corridor. This would split Armenian forces in two and choke the remnant Armenian units in Karabakh. What happens next is unknown. What is certain is that the status quo no longer exists, nor is it even a recipe for a peace settlement. The formula of the negotiations has changed. There is still time to negotiate a diplomatic resolution. For example, with the aid of European councillors, mechanisms can be created to ensure self-determination for the Armenian community within the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan, a local government with its own law enforcement, judges, with its own programs for media, education, culture, and so on. Admittedly, the road ahead will be difficult and take time, but anything worthwhile is hard work. There is enough room for both communities to live and thrive in Karabakh, as it was in the past. It's not too late yet for such an arrangement, but time is running out. I've been your host, Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you approve of
I apologize for the technical difficulties with the video, but Irina, if you want to take it from here.
Hi, well, first of all, welcome to everyone who joined while the video was playing. I'm sorry that some people are having technical issues on their end, but they're welcome to continue following. So before we begin the active discussion, I wanted to give a few words about what happened after the events described in the video. Since then, as you know, Azerbaijani forces have had entered Shusha, took Shusha completely, and that quickly was followed with a signing of a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, agreeing that Russian and Turkish peacekeeping forces would be stationed in the area. Azerbaijan recovered most of the occupied territories. Yesterday there was a big benchmark with the handover of Ahdam, one of the cities that gave rise to a large number of IDPs. That it is to follow with other benchmarks with other cities joining, and the particularly important date is in December with the return of the Lanchin corridor. What happened on the media end while these military events were going on? The coverage in the West has been largely uneven. The event has been portrayed in terms of the narrative has been driven largely by the Armenian lobbies, particularly in the United States and France. The conflict was portrayed there were three narrative lines going on. First, this was seen as part of a larger conflict between European countries and Turkey. Second, there was the human rights angle being pushed with the Armenian lobbies alleging potential genocide in the event of the liberation of the territories. And the third angle was the allegations of a religious war between a Christian majority Armenia and Muslim majority Azerbaijan. All three narratives were false because, as we have seen from the video, Turkey was not a party to the conflict through most of its duration. It was also not a party to the conflict during the war itself. It has provided some weapons to Azerbaijan, but overall its interests in the region have been economic and cultural, not military, and it was the Azerbaijani military that drove the gains on the ground, and that and the conflict itself was always solely between Azerbaijan and Armenia, not any other party. The second, but because of the ongoing tensions between various European countries and Turkey, that angle, the angle of Turkey's involvement, was played up to the point that outright unprovable and blatantly false narratives were mixed in with legitimate discussions of various third parties and their interests in the region. we've heard about the Syrian jihadist narrative that was never confirmed, but has been brought up to public attention by various publications, even mentioned by public officials in several countries. And ultimately, what came of it after the war was over, somehow the issue of the Syrian jihadists disappeared off the table, as a lot of these narratives that have a tendency to do once the issue itself is resolved. The narratives are there to drive a particular point, but once they are not useful, they have served their purpose or, one way or the other, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, it makes no sense to continue reiterating those points. Now, the question is, why in the aftermath of the conflict have the publications who were alleging the presence of these jihadists not addressed what happened to these alleged forces, if they had played any part in the war, what happened to them at the conclusion of the peace agreement? That somehow completely skipped media attention, and I'd be curious to see anyone actually address that point. With regards to the genocide claims, they likewise have proven to be completely false. We have seen the process by which Armenians who had been illegally imported to the area in contravention of international laws have been allowed to leave in a timely manner and even given extensions to leave, whereas the Armenians who had been living prior to the beginning of the conflict and the occupation had been welcomed to stay along with anyone else, any other citizens of Azerbaijan. Finally, with respect to the religious war, another narrative, that narrative is actually persisting to this day. There are still attempts to make claims that there is an issue of religion involved. That narrative is undermined by the events on the ground. We have seen that Armenians, while leaving these territories, have looted Christian sites. Some have tried to claim that they have taken various properties for protection because Azerbaijan would have destroyed them otherwise. But actually, if you look at the state of some of the churches located in territories under Armenian occupation, they had deteriorated significantly, and some were destroyed. Some by active action and some from neglect, but this kind of defies this current narrative. The media attention shifted from almost completely one-sided narrative dominated by these Armenian allegations to the coverage of the events in the aftermath of the conflict because of the widespread ecological attacks and evidence of Armenians burning down houses and other property as they were living. Those houses belong to the IDPs who were forced to relocate elsewhere in Azerbaijan. And essentially now the next stage in the conflict is the restoration of this property so that people could return home, and so that investors and those who wish to see the region thrive could have an opportunity to take meaningful action in that regard. Now, with respect to the media claims, this conclusion to the conflict was a major blow to them. Was a major blow to the Armenian lobbyists because now that the war is over and now that there's no genocide, now that they can no longer ask for humanitarian aid for a fictional entity that they had designated inside those territories, there appears to be no room forward. However, some of that lobbying effort persists because they have approached the administration and Congress and requested a very large sum of money of humanitarian aid for those who were supposedly forced to leave in the aftermath, the Armenians who had been relocated following the occupation. They are now asking for humanitarian aid. Now, how much of that will actually be granted remains to be seen. But I do know that one of the issues in the aftermath of the conflict is the issue of reparations. and that Azerbaijan is requesting from Armenia. And now with that, I'm giving it over to Ben to comment more on both the potential military and potential other media issues that now stem from this conclusion of the active part of the conflict. Ben?
I'm here.
Yes.
So I won't take much of your time. I'm gonna play catch up based on the technical issues with the video. But there is something that I would like to touch on as far as the media goes. In California, the diaspora for the Armenians is extremely strong. You know, I was personally attacked, my business, my family threatened, you name it. And that continues to this day, even though the conflict has technically been ended. So part of what my goal is with this is to shift the narrative, to continue to shift the narrative. I have a penchant for making people angry, including the ambassador from Armenia to the United States. I am his least favorite person. But I also have a penchant for telling the truth. And so my goal with this group was to start telling the truth, to start having those tough discussions amongst journalists and experts and citizens, people that live there. You know, I'm not an Azerbaijani citizen. You know, I feel like I am, you know, based upon my immersion into this conflict. I spoke to the Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo, the other day, and I told him that I thought that the idea of giving any money for humanitarian aid to Armenia was ludicrous. You know, I told him I thought that that was sticking his foot in his mouth, and they were pandering to a vote, and the election was over. You know, most people don't understand that concept, but I basically told him he could get bent, and if he did this, it was political suicide for himself and his party. I think that it's going to take a media push and a lot of strength for us to get the message out about what really happened. You know, nobody wants to focus on the fact that there were 1 million IDPs and they're now returning to their homes, which the Armenians are burning. Nobody wants to focus on the fact that the eco-terrorism that the Armenians are taking part in right now goes far beyond what's reported in the media. Poisoning waterways, leaving cattle and other animals dead to spread infectious diseases and other such terrible things throughout the region. Deforestation, removal of natural resources. This seems to be the modus operandi for how the Armenians physically act, and the lobbying efforts in the United States. In my mind, and this is just an opinion not to offend anybody, but in my mind, the way that their lobby works here basically lends credence to the mob mentality that they operate with. And the average person, both in the U.S. and outside of the U.S., doesn't understand how much money is generated through this apparatus here in the United States and sent to finance things in Armenia. And, you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I could give you a 2.5-hour security brief on things that are happening in Azerbaijan and Armenia, but that's not for today. But I am available for questions if you have them. And with that, I believe that Dr. Frank will be making a presentation.
Thank you, Ben. Well, I wrote a paper about the economy side of this conflict. So I'm going to quote from that paper. So basically, we're going to look at Europe, how it looks at Azerbaijan and Armenia. Basically, Europe is dependent on Russia's oil, and we know that Russia and Iran all are under sanctions from the United States for a while. And basically, if we go back to the history, Baku oil was crucial in the victory of the Allies in World War II. So it's crucial today for Europe energy supplies as well. Now, if we're going to look at Azerbaijan gas corridors, it has several ones, north, south, east, west, but the most important one to us is the west one, which is the one that goes through Georgia to Turkey. This one is like a huge line that is three parts in general, called the South Caucasus pipeline, the Trans-Anatolian natural gas pipeline, and the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. Basically, that will run gas from Baku all the way to the northeastern part of Europe. Of course, Russia is not sleeping over the subject, so they reach for Turkey, and they establish what's called the Turk Stream, the Gazprom pipeline, which is used in Turkey as a landline, and supply gas to Europe through Bulgaria, Serbia, and Hungary. Of course, they have an old pipeline, the Blue Stream gas pipeline, the one that goes through the Black Sea directly to Ankara. Okay, now let's say, okay, we're gonna skip any part that related to Iran here, and we're gonna concentrate on Europe part. Of course, Turkey became a hub gas corridor for Europe, and to increase that influence, they reached for Qatar, and they proposed a gas line that called Nabucco. This gas line should, of course, it's planned and it's postponed now, should support gas to Europe from Iran and Qatari gas was through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Turkey, and all the way to Europe. But of course, there is some hurdles in the point here, according to Syria rejecting the Qatari proposal and Turkey proposal because they want to keep Russia as an alliance. Now, a new key player that came to the area here, which is Israel, because of the East Mediterranean gas discovery, Israel proposed a plan worth $6 billion building a gas pipeline that will supply gas from Israel to Europe using Cyprus, Greece, Italy, and all the way to Europe. Of course, such a project will create a friction with Turkey because Turkey is considered now as the gas hub of Europe, and because of the problem that it's ongoing with Cyprus and Greece. Okay, so what's about Armenia here? Well, Armenia is a well-known Christian small nation that's surrounded by Islamic region. Doesn't have no oil, no refineries, no pipelines. Even the gas that comes from Russia through Georgia, it comes through trucks and railways. So really like not in a good situation here. Okay, so how's the United States and Russia are looking at Armenia? Of course, Armenia received more United States aid than any other country except Israel. Azerbaijan doesn't receive anything. But in the meantime, the United States has an interest in Azerbaijan oil. And of course, that makes Russia very cautious not to spoil its relationship with Azerbaijan. Okay, now we know that Russia has a military base in Armenia. But this military base and their military agreement with Armenia doesn't involve the Nagorno-Karabakh. and the region that it's been occupied around Nagorno-Karabakh. So in case Russia, according to the agreement, want to support Armenia, it's not going to be related to Nagorno-Karabakh. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Nagorno-Karabakh. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go and say here a few points why Azerbaijan has too many allies. So the first one is Turkey, and of course the basic point here between the Turkish people and the Azerbaijanis or the Azeris people is the ethnic background. We know that Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkey are Turkish countries. Turkey was the first country that recognized Azerbaijan independence in 1991. Of course, Turkey is dependent on Azerbaijan to be the gas hub of Europe. Now, there is agreements, military agreements, since the beginning of the independence of Azerbaijan with Turkey. It's been signed in 1992. These kind of agreement, it's a defense agreement that allow Turkish people to interfere and support the Azeri people. They train Azeri army, and they have a large scale of military exercises together. Okay, so now if we look at Russia, how Russia is looking here at Azerbaijan. Of course, Armenia is the only Russian alliance in the area, in the Caucasus area. But Russia has a problem that most of the Caucasus countries are being attracted to the NATO. And Russia would like to keep its relationship with Armenia, so it's not going to be going towards NATO, basically just like Georgia did, and most likely Azerbaijan might do as well. Another threat to Russia is the central five Muslim countries are Turkish countries, Muslim countries, and they have the same ethnic background: Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Iran problem with the Azerbaijan. Iran has 40% of its population that it's from an Azeri ethnic background. That's why Iran has to decide to go to the Armenian side. However, that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Azerbaijani people are Shiite Muslims. So basically, people will think they will support each other, but basically, looks like Iran is interested on keeping their entity away from the influence of the Azeri people in their homeland, so they decided to support the Armenian people. For Israel, there is a unique relationship that does not exist anywhere between any Muslim countries and Israel. Azerbaijan has 2,500-year-old Jewish community. Those people benefited from a religious tolerance for a long time. Iran has a problem with Israel. So Israel would like to keep its relationship north of Iran. Of course, Israel is one of the main economic and technology hub, military hub in the Middle East. They supply military equipment to Azerbaijan, and they would like to keep them as an alliance in an exchange for gas that it's really needed for the economy of Israel. Now, for the USA, Azerbaijan Energy It reduces the Southern Europe dependency on Russia, and that serves American objectives. The Azerbaijan is also an important U.S. counter-terrorism and security partner in nearby Afghanistan. So basically, Russia has promised to defend Armenia, Turkey has pledged to support Afghanistan, Iran has a sizable Azeri minority, which could escalate crisis and further complications effort to secure the peace in the area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Musmar. I will let people ask the questions a little bit after. I think I'll just let all the presenters go first, and then everyone can ask questions of anyone else. So the next speaker is Zawar Sadiq Bali. I'm afraid if I'm mispronouncing your name, but you are welcome to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Irina. Welcome to everybody. You know, I have several points. You know, if you know, some of you, but 2 days ago I had intervention on French, Russia Today, French TV channel with an Armenian, Philippe Kalfatian. It was a very interesting point, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so very many things was uncertain because I was cheated about the subject of that debate, but Mr. Kalfatian just get out, just I'm a rabbit in a circus, saying there is Canada Supreme Court ruling about the Quebec, and his main point was that Azerbaijan, as a use of force, lost his right to keep Nagorno-Karabakh inside. Just the question apart. I want to know the opinions of eminent scholars in presenting this meeting. But my point now is indifferent because I know that very interesting to discuss economy and pipelines and whole geopolitics. We understand also, I think, that Azerbaijan now find itself that historically, I talked about that for the past 200 years in just equilibrium, like South Caucasus between three powers. And that's why that, in my opinion, that was a condition sine qua non to independence of three Caucasus states. But now the question, the main question I think we should ask ourselves that what will happen with Armenian troops left in Nagorno-Karabakh, in that part that indeed today is protected by Russia. So my question is a simple, what I want to put on the table and ask the opinions of each other who want to say and discuss of this. And what is the condition now and how create that condition for total unconditional withdrawal of left as the Armenian military in Nagorno-Karabakh? I mean, my question is about total demilitarization of Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, this is the first question. And I pointed with a group of Azerbaijanis living in France in coordination group, which we working together, that if you remember the decision, which is now, of course, not applicable because it was in the past, but the famous decision Armenians rely of July 5th, 1921 of Caucasian Bureau was saying, Nagorno-Karabakh last stay in Azerbaijan, and that's also linked like Audrey Alstadt put it in a Menu's article with the Karabakh Treaty itself, because it was promise given to Azerbaijan that Karabakh Khanate will stay Azerbaijani, and Russian, as I told in that debate, they keep their words, the promise that they made, if even there was some another discussion, and we know that Mikoyan directly participated in that Caucasian Bureau decision to maintain Azerbaijan within Azerbaijan. But the main one thing I found in that decision, and I never saw in any scholars pointing on that it was mentioned in that decision that administrative center of Nagorno-Karabakh will be in Shusha, and never was mentioned on Khankendon, Stepanakert. So what's happened during Soviet era, it was illegally, unconstitutionally changed that by Armenian lobby in Soviet Union. You know that Kachazuni made a very famous the article or the declaration saying that the Armenian Revolutionary Federation has nothing more to do, and the conclusion was that Soviet Union and Soviet administration will do the best for us. So they achieved in some way. So that's a very interesting point, that if Nagorno-Karabakh's administrative center in Shusha, that it should be. But the main point, I think, and it's very real danger today, in a context of last interview of Vladimir Putin and that points that kind of a hidden threat on Azerbaijan, saying that the main scenario can happen that's happened in Georgia, and speaking within the peacekeeping portion, pressure on peacekeeping portion, saying you may recognize, and that all that discussion about that self-determination, expression of people's will, and the things the same, the parallel, of course the point is that neither Turkey or Azerbaijan violated international law, but this kind of trait about Azerbaijan and having as Russian military in Karabakh, but for me, friends, the main point is that we have still on Azerbaijani territory, Nagorno-Karabakh, internationally recognized on that part until Russian guarantee, let's say this way, Armenian military. And my question, real question, is how to demilitarize totally Nagorno-Karabakh. And of course, if some of you want to tell me your opinion about my reply to Mr. Kalfatian, saying that the three principles of Quebec ruling that Azerbaijan violated, in my opinion, none of 3 pointed Azerbaijan has violated, but we know that everything will be done now with Armenian diaspora, and especially in France or United States when they have power to accuse Azerbaijan, convict maybe Azerbaijan in war crimes or some of that blah 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 Armenian history, as I told that again, putting on genocide inside, to trying to justify it. So that's my question, and I will be very pleased to listen to the opinions of whosoever want to react on my proposals, my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments and great questions. We'll definitely have an opportunity to address them. But now I give the floor to Nasir Zaman, who will also make a few points. Nasir?
Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity. First of all, I would like to allow me to say that this is a very good opportunity and a good platform for discussing this topic because of the diverse background of all the guests coming in here. Now, regarding my topic, I would like to discuss some points about how international law prevents Armenian intrusion into Azerbaijan's territory, which is Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, when we discuss United Nations Charter, Article 2, Clause 4 of United Nations Charter clearly states that territorial integrity of any country is very important against brutal use of force. Similarly, we see that in 1993, multiple resolutions were passed against Armenian incursions in Azerbaijan, according to which Armenia was declared as the tyrant and occupying force in the region. Now, if we discuss other dimensions of international law, we find that, like the last speaker just said, the Quebec case, which was about territorial integrity as well, we find that this topic has been discussed in detail. For example, when we discuss about how territorial in the area of Artsakh, which was declared as a state by Armenia, we find that although Armenia declared Artsakh as a state, but according to international law, international customary law provisions, we find that it is not a state, because for making a state legitimate under international law, there should be recognition of such state from other countries in the world. But we find that it is highly unlikely in the case of Artsakh state, and even Armenia has not accepted it. Furthermore, we find that the Artsakh, according to other provisions of international law, there are many cases in which the Armenian military has committed war crimes in occupied Nagorno-Karabakh, which is now in Azerbaijan's occupations. And many provisions of international law prohibit such use of force, and therefore Armenia cannot justify its claim on Nagorno-Karabakh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasir. And I'd like to open the floor up for any questions, discussions, comments, responses, whether to us, to any of the speakers, or just your own comments as you wish.
May we just ask? Okay.
Sure, please.
Thank you. Well, first I would like to touch upon the issue of the demilitarization of Nagorno-Karabakh. I think if we are talking about the region of Nagorno-Karabakh, it would be good in the future, but I'm not sure how the Armenians would react for that. As you know, the all-and-island model has been discussed in regards to the Nagorno-Karabakh, and it's part of Finland from where I come from, and Åland is demilitarized. And there was a dispute between Finland and Sweden on where would Åland Island belong to. But of course, Armenia might find it not acceptable when the other regions around Nagorno-Karabakh would remain as ordinary Azerbaijani regions with military. And then if Nagorno-Karabakh was demilitarized, I don't know if but it's something that Azerbaijan can decide upon, and I really I support that, because we don't want to have another war, we don't want to have another uprising in Nagorno-Karabakh in the future. And I think that one really important thing in regards to Armenia now, and also the Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, would be to establish economic relations between Turkey and Armenia, and between Azerbaijan and Armenia as soon as it's possible, because that's the only way we can really cut the power of the diaspora on Armenia, because Armenia and Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh are so dependent on the money from diaspora that that's the way the diaspora can dictate them. And as we know, diaspora is much more warmongering, much more bloodthirsty than actually the Armenians in Armenia or in Nagorno-Karabakh would be without this influence. So I think that's one of our main concerns, the diaspora, and especially diaspora in the US. I have some questions generally. Some of them are for specialists. They are not in a specific order. I can also type them into the chat after I express them if it's easier. But one thing, when I've been approaching politicians in Europe and in Finland during the war, the response I got was not very encouraging, even though there were many politicians in Finland who knew me from the capacity of I had been their advisor on foreign and security policy and the EU. But suddenly when I come and discuss about Azerbaijan and try to state objective facts, they could not take them, because they were frankly so brainwashed by the Armenians that they thought, no, this can't be true. And some of them called me after the war saying, I'm really sorry, now I realize you were speaking the truth all along. But like, it's that strong, the effect that the diaspora has had, even in a country like Finland, which is considered neutral, people are considered educated, that they are media critical, etc. So I wanted to raise this point because I think Finland is a good, bad example on how deep this Armenian propaganda is in the world, and in the West especially. So those questions that I have for you people, like what have been the decisive facts or arguments you have used that has turned someone from an anti-Azerbaijani or very blindly pro-Armenian into an objective one? Like what have been the turning points? I think that would be very interesting for all of us to hear, like what have been the facts that have really turned people's heads. And then I think that when we write about this conflict, when we write about Azerbaijan, and when we contact politicians, there should be a really fast track how we could check facts on some events, like to find out whether they are true or not. Some claims made by either side, but not by the states perhaps, but by journalists, etc. Because sometimes it's very important that we could cut the wings of rumors very quickly, and we should have some sort of whom we can ask, whether it's someone from a diaspora, perhaps, I don't know, if you have a press office or something, so that we could be really quick. And then one thing that I'm really worried is that the Armenian toxic rhetoric continues, and that's something that after the ceasefire, that should not continue, not by the state or the politicians, not by the diaspora. And I think that's something we should really issue and target. So the diaspora's drumming is continuing. And then it seems that they are still having their geo-expansion plans ongoing, which is very dangerous and should be also issued and targeted. And then sometimes I'm thinking, is Armenia led by diaspora in the California, or is it led by politicians in Armenia? And this is something I would like to hear your opinions on. I noticed 2 times during the war, at some points I didn't sleep, for instance, for 4 days in a row because I was following the events. And I noticed 2 times during a war, there was a 2-hour time frame when no Armenians were online, absolutely no Armenians. They were nowhere in the social media, 2-hour window. And both times when the 2 hours had passed with no Armenians at all, and when they started sort of flying back as butterflies to the social media, after 1 or 2 hours, Pashinyan gave a really important speech. So I think they have some sort of communication method, a Zoom-like something with which they communicate with the active diaspora members globally, those ones who are able to use the internet and social media. So they have some sort of naval cord, which is real time. And then I would like to know how alive is the Dashnak and the Armenian Revolutionary Federation's policy and aim still in their true agenda, which is obviously not the official political agenda because it would be too ugly to be presented to the world. But to me, it seems that's still their true agenda, is it? And what do you think, is Asala or a similar terrorist organization a realistic threat globally and in Azerbaijan now or after this war? And then last one, do you have inside information what's Biden's and his close circles political real stats on Armenia? I know that the California Democrats are mostly in the pockets of Armenians like Pelosi, but how about Biden? I know people who are very close to Kamala Harris from the Black Caucasus in the California Democrats, sitting in the executive committee of the California Democrats. I know Kamala Harris has not been poisoned against Azerbaijan, and we can talk to her. But how about Joe Biden? So these are my questions. I can type them in if it helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I thought those are great questions and great insights as well. I will let first, if anyone else has comments, to respond to them.
May I speak?
Yes, please.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So I would like to react to what has been said, especially during the last 2 interventions. First, I would like to emphasize that Mr. Philippe Kalfayan, who has been mentioned recently, is an idiot beside being a fanatic. I remember quite well my first indirect clash with him was almost 9 years ago when he was defending the Boyer Bill. The Boyer Bill, for those who don't know it, was a completely nonsensical bill supposed to ban any theses against the Armenian genocide label. Mr. Kalfayan is supposed to be a jurist by education, explained that no, there is no problem of unconstitutionality. It has been censored by the Constitutional Council with very harsh motivation. So we should not be surprised if he says nonsense about international law. I am not a jurist. If there is a jurist in the floor, he or she can express that better than me. But as Nagorno-Karabakh and the 7 neighboring country district are officially internationally recognized part of Azerbaijani territory, Azerbaijan is free to intervene. It's like the US Army intervening in Texas, like the French Army intervening in Corsica. So there is just no question about it. Azerbaijan has the right to control its territories, period. Regarding violence from Armenian nationalists, Asala, Dashnak, and the relation between diaspora and Armenia. I work on that. Perhaps I can say some things. First, I beg to disagree. There are fanatics in Armenia itself. Armenian nationalism in Armenia has been used by Stalin in 1945-47. It has been partly rehabilitated as early as 1954. I go very quickly, we can discuss the details later, just to give you a framework. And the Soviets played with fire several times. It exploded from their hands at the end of 1980s, because not everything happened exactly like they wish it will happen. So there is a basis for Armenian nationalism in Armenia, and even more in Nagorno-Karabakh. That's why this military reconquest is blow for the nationalists of Karabakh. That's why this military humiliation is blow for the nationalists in Armenia. So they exist, but I think in Armenia and even more in Nagorno-Karabakh, they are in a very bad period of their life. Moreover, regarding the financial issues, because as everybody knows, money is the most basic issue. Napoleon said, to make war, you need money, money, and money. It's much more complicated than the evil diaspora paying the good Armenia to be ugly. No, it's not like that. There is an online book, Narco-Karabakh, on the various traffic, drug, but also gold and so on, from the neighboring previously occupied district of Nagorno-Karabakh. It has been a major source of revenue for the most extremist element of the diaspora, particularly the Armenian Revolutionary Federation. And one of the main reasons why the Armenian Revolutionary Federation is so angry against this conquest, okay, this is because of political fanaticism, but it is also because they are losing a lot of money. And it is also because they were always been more influential in Nagorno-Karabakh than in Armenia itself, I mean, since the late 1980s. And just to finish with these issues, regarding the question of violence, I don't think we have to fear a new Asala, because Asala initially was just a gang of friends. It became dangerous only gradually. It became dangerous because it was helped by Soviet Russia, which is just unthinkable today, by Greece. No Greek government will do what has been done in the 1980s. It's completely behind us. And I don't like the current Greek government, so it's not a matter of preference. Supported by the most extremist element of the Palestinian, particularly the Palestinian Front for Liberation of Palestine, which is in a very difficult moment currently, which has absolutely no way to support them, no matter what they think. So such a scenario is not likely. But what is likely is individual action of violence, because everybody can take a knife in the kitchen. In the US, everybody can buy a gun and do something. So this is something we have to take into account, definitely. And just to finish with that, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation has had its own terrorist group in 1970s, 1980s. The RRF is the most likely suspect for the anti-Azerbaijani terrorist act at the end of 1980s and beginning of 1990s. So this is a risk. But the RRF, for the financial reason I mentioned, is not likely to restart such major terrorism. And if we want to crush any capacity of the RRF to do so, I think the better idea for Azerbaijan is to give the priority to the Dashnaks in the court case for those who illegally exploited the natural resource of occupied territories. So if you finish to give blow to the RRF, financially speaking, they will not try anything of this kind.
Thank you so much. And again, very thought-provoking comments, and I think a great response. And Maria wanted to also address some of these issues.
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, I would love to just first of all express to you my sincere gratitude and happiness actually of being here. Because as I told you before, I don't know if every one of you were present, I am not a journalist, not a politician. I'm just an Azerbaijani citizen who loves my home country, and at the moment I live in Geneva in Switzerland, in the neutrality of the world, to which I want to actually address. And I want to express my gratitude because I feel so happy for seeing that there are other people who agree with us, with common folks representatives, and what I'm thinking personally, and what people around me, including our Azerbaijani diaspora here in Switzerland, and also including other Swiss people, who actually do agree on things that we have been talking about here. So I'd like to address the fact about the Swiss media. For me, it was a very big surprise to find that Swiss media, and in particularly Geneva media, to be so biased and so pro-Armenian. I've been following with other members of our community, as well as with my husband, who's actually Swiss, who was not even himself aware of the magnitude of this Armenian lobby. And to me, my first personal encounter was when on the 4th of October, my mom wrote me an SMS saying, "Maria, Ganja has been bombed." And I was like, what? Ganja is not even in the, for those of you who don't know, Ganja is one of the cities, is the second biggest city in Azerbaijan that has been bombed 4 times during the war. And when she told me that it was bombed, and when I was reading the news, and also from Armenian side, and they were saying that, we have destroyed the Ganja military aerodrome. And when my mom told me, look, and the bomb just fell just next to our house, not too far. And I know that next to our house in Ganja, there is no military aerodrome. So for me personally, it was the very first personally shocking encounter of how deep this Armenian propaganda lies. And after that, it just went like an avalanche. So, and I regret to actually see that the Swiss media took, especially Geneva ones, have been, I dare say, showing some brainwashed attitude towards what has been happening. In all the articles that I've been reading in Le Courrier, Le Temps, they were always either addressing things that have been happening in Nagorno-Karabakh, and not a word about what has been happening in Azerbaijan, not a single word about what has happened to Ganja, to my home city, to Barda, to Tartar, to Mingichever, and etc. And that was one, what's about the news. And the other thing that I would like to address to Swiss media, including Swiss, some people who are known in Switzerland, like some politicians, etc. They've been writing some reports about the historical part of Karabakh. And I know and love the history of my home country. I come actually from a historical background. My great-grandfather was Fatali Khan Khoiski, was one of the founders of the Azerbaijani Democratic Republic in 1918, 1920. So when I was reading in Swiss media, Swiss politicians repeating that Stalin gave Karabakh either in 1920, 1921, 1922, and 1923, I found 4 dates. I was actually sharing them with my husband, who is Swiss, who has never heard about all this before. And I'm like saying, okay, you are Swiss, you're not Azerbaijani, just read to me, what do you say? What do you think about it? And one of the things that I actually found how to turn things, how to explain to people from a common folk point of view, not as a journalist or as a politician, again, is to show simple facts. I drew actually the famous speech of Pashinyan when he said, the Caucasian Bureau decided to give Karabakh to Armenia. I said, okay, let's draw out this document, what is written in it. On the 4th of July 1921, it was indeed written to include Armenia to Karabakh. So I'm saying from the logical point of view, if we include a territory into somewhere, that means we've taken it from somewhere. Like it's to me, it's like a law of, I don't know, like a thermodynamics law. So if Karabakh allegedly was always Armenian, why would they include it to Armenia? Moreover, on the 5th of July, as we know, the 1921, this famous Caucasian Bureau meeting, when it's written black on white, as we say in Russian, to leave Karabakh within the borders of the Azerbaijani SSSR due to its perpetual relationship with Azerbaijan. And I was reading all this to my husband, to my friends around, and I said, okay, what do you make of this? If it was Armenians, etc., why would it be written that it has been, it is to be left to Azerbaijan? So these allegations about genocide and about religious war, it was for me, how I actually addressed them was to show, okay, you guys are saying that they should auto-determine. Imagine Geneva, it's the population of Geneva, 40% of the population in Geneva are foreigners, and the biggest community that we have here are French. So I said, just imagine this, imagine French people, the biggest foreign community in Geneva, one day to decide, you know what, I'm just going to chase away all non-Genevans, so all Portuguese, Azeris, Russians, whoever are here. I will ethnically cleanse them. The remaining part, I will kill them. I will rename all the cities, all the communes, Commune de Genève, like all the communes of Geneva canton to my liking. And I will proclaim this place, this territory as I need to auto-determinate, and I am actually not French, but I am, I'm not, related to France, but I am actually under its, protection. So when I was telling stuff like from common folks' point of view to people, I noticed that they do start understanding things and say, okay, indeed, things doesn't, the Armenian allegations, they indeed don't they don't seem credible about this genocide, about this war and everything. And my husband, who is, Swiss, who again has never heard about all this before, when I was just showing him stuff, look at Hocalı genocide, look at what has been happening, look at their ruins. They have been claiming that they, they make all these for them Karabakh is the prosperous territory. They've been living there for ages. Look at the maps of the Hanlık, of the Khanates of Azerbaijan. Look at everything, and you will see it's it's so easy personally to see, even from the common folks' point of view, even without having as many resources as you guys present here have. You have a lot more than me. And I'm so happy that my point of view, and actually what I'm saying is also what you're saying. And to me, the conclusion of this would be indeed to share the facts, to show the documents, and sometimes to speak out of common folks' point of view, like what I've been doing here in Geneva, around my friends, sharing with my Russian friends, with my Swiss friends, with the family of my husband, etc. And I've been seeing that it has been working. So I'm continuing to do my work, as I told my family back in Ganja and my friends there, that for me, justice must prevail. And this brainwashed Swiss, especially Genevan media, is something that, it's something like we don't know whether to laugh or to cry from despair when we read them. So I thank you very much, actually, for all this, for your attention. And I would really love to continue keeping contact with you guys. I'm so sorry I have to leave, actually, so I will just write my email and my phone number in the chat. So if any of you would like to contact me, it would be just my pleasure. You can also find me in Twitter, you can find me in Instagram. So as I say, I'm a common Azerbaijani Swiss representative who wants to share the justice for my home country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate these comments, and I appreciate the lively discussion. There has been a number of questions on the sidebar. If anyone wants to either articulate them out loud or to comment on them, you're welcome to do so.
Can I just add something?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi.
Yeah, I have another question I wanted to ask because actually I had in my head to ask it, but then I didn't. But so as you know, as I wrote, I'm personally born in Armenia in 1976 and lived there 11 years. when the conflict began, and I lived with my family from there. So I made some videos, and was some, maybe you will see in a while, some videos we made, and I made my testimony to fix it in a history. And but myself personal, I spent years to understand why, how my family gets there. My father and his father and all that line of my father, actually my father's side in Armenia. No, I know very good history because I studied. But in time was very, very, very violent clash, and I have also was injured with a kind of not a knife, but it's a kind of metal that was put in my hand, because I refused to say that Karabakh belongs to Armenia. When now my question is about, and 217 of my direct compatriots, Azeris from Armenia like me, have been killed, assassinated in Armenia, and crime was never been investigated or punished. So my question is about, in that time was 280, unless officially Azerbaijan is from Armenia expelled as a result of ethnic cleanings. And now, because of 30 years past, that number should be even grow, because they made children. I have my daughter, and so on. So we may come now to the number of 350 people in total, with all people having that right to live, jus soli, or double jus soli in how you analyze. Because the question is that I know Armenian historiography and Armenian judicial explication of that. Armenians, if you want, it's very maybe it's nonsense, but it's a reality. So Armenians saying that Azeris living in Armenia was like kind of gastarbeiters. So for many years, so they didn't care, maybe 200 years or 300 years, even more, because Armenians, as you know, they say that they was always living there, and before them was dinosaurs living there. It's kind of funny, but it's real, their point of view. So the theory is that the gastarbeiters finished their job, and they left Romania in 1998, whatever, it's no important how, but they lived. So my question is, as we will come, and now it just ceasefire, that signed, okay? I think everyone is okay with that, agree with that. It's not a settlement, it's just a ceasefire, armistice, like we say in French, but armistice with the conditions which will influence the final deal. So as we will come one day to, I hope, to peaceful solution in one or in another formula, and by the way, I think that Armenian position is undefendable, because it's annexion, digitized annexion, because what's to Armenia, it's annexed territory of sovereign country. That's why it never recognized the Karabakh. And maybe we will come to the point that Armenia will officially say, I want this from Azerbaijan, and then we will enter a negotiation at referendum at the end, because only people can decide from both sides, by the way. So if we come to the deal one day, and of course, Armenia, if official Armenia reclaims some territories from Azerbaijan to officially shift to Armenian sovereignty, and Azerbaijan also will, of course, saying about Caucasus of Azerbaijani territories that was given to Armenia legally, by the way, in the beginning of the century. Anyway, my question is, of course, double about territories. It's a second hand, because it's not on the table. It's not written in this ceasefire agreement. But the first thing about Azerbaijani refugees and their right to live in Armenia, what do you think, in any condition, in any way, do you think that the question will be addressed during the negotiations on imposition? Because Armenians from time to time, they say about Armenians, poor Armenians expelled from Azerbaijan. Maxim Guin probably studied many things in history, and he knowing very well that Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh and in Azerbaijan was living like kings, have a very good positions. And what I told in that debate to Mr. Kalfanian, that from 5th to 1st secretary in Karabakh 4 was Armenians, and in de facto they was doing whatever they wanted. That was a very big compromise in the time. So the main question now about my compatriots and Azerbaijanis who lived in Armenia, do you think that there was in any possibility that the question will be addressed during negotiations, and we can find formula that people come back to their homes, maybe not in Yerevan, but at least at Göyçay and Zangezur? By the way, I think mostly in Caucasus it was compact living, maybe less in Zangezur, because Zangezur was ethnically cleaned by Andronik very, very lot. It was maybe some villages, but mostly in Caucasus. My part of my family, my uncle was living in Shishkaya, in a village near Tesevan, and I passed my childhood during my childhood many times going to there and having that farewell from Sevan and swimming in that magnificent lake. So thank you very much, and I hope your reactions and comments.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to give the floor to Farida, who's been waiting. Sorry for the misunderstanding. And then I'm going to leave the floor to anyone who wants to respond to this or the other questions before addressing whatever hasn't been tackled. Farida, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Irina. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for Irina and other organizers for organizing this event. It's the first time I'm seeing so many unfamiliar faces. Thank you for that. I live in the United Kingdom, but currently I'm in Baku. So I'm joining you, and I could not get clear connection in the beginning to hear what actually. I just read the purpose of this meeting, but could not hear you properly about the purpose of this meeting. But watch the video, and the video is clearly summarized what has happened in Azerbaijan. Zal Sadiq really raised the question of demilitarization of Karabakh. I just want to just say on that that if we look at the history of Russia and how Russia conducted itself throughout all these years, when they invade a country, whether they are invited or invade by force, they are not there to leave, they are there to stay. And when on 10th of November, when Ilham Aliyev at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's about 4ish in the morning, when he came up with a statement to say that the war has stopped, and from there onwards, what was going to happen. So many people were on the street celebrating, but there were so many people were so sort of quietly observing what the president was saying. So for some Azerbaijanis, it was Russia came again to save Armenians, not Armenian citizens, not the peaceful citizens. If we have any peaceful citizens anywhere in our occupied territories, but we still consider them sort of citizens that were not, we're not sort of advocating war. We're just, there to live in peace and harmony. But that was not the case. So, so many political people who are involved in politics, people who are not involved in politics and from different backgrounds, they were all saying that Russia came again to save Armenians. And there is a clause in that statement that after 5 years, if one of the parties still requests for Russia to stay, the Russia stays for another 5 years. So that is 10 years. Russia will remain in Karabakh. That's without a question. But luckily, this time we have got Turkey involved. So I don't know if after 10 years and so many political observers say that after 10 years they could be Armenians will probably come up with something, and we're not talking about peaceful Armenians. We're talking about the Armenian diaspora. Nazrin Can mentioned earlier, because we know that Armenia is mainly controlled by diaspora, because we know that there are so many probably hundreds of thousands of Armenians in Armenia do not want to send their sons to fight in this war. And if you look at Karabakh today, the way Armenians are leaving, they haven't built anything in Karabakh it does. If you look what happened, look how they're leaving. If you are attached to a soil, if you're attached to a country, you do not burn everything. You do not destroy everything. You only destroy. You can vandalize. You can terrorize a place if it doesn't belong to you. And that's what they have been doing. They have been terrorizing and vandalizing Karabakh even before they started leaving. If you look at Zangilan now, the president went there the other day with his wife, and Agdam and Shusha. Have you seen any sort of a place that you could say, oh, that was a building that we had quite nice to stand and it's just blown up? They did not invest in Karabakh because they knew that they were going to leave. But diaspora, Armenian diaspora, especially in United States, are generating millions and millions from this conflict. And they were not going to let peaceful Armenians to live in peace and harmony with Azerbaijanis. That was never going to happen. So when it comes to demilitarization of Karabakh, we don't think in Azerbaijan, I've met with so many people in Azerbaijan, we don't think that is going to happen. We think that Russia is there to stay. And that is the currently what's happening in South Caucasus. Russia now invaded or attached South Abkhazia, is it Ossetia and South Abkhazia or South Ossetia and Abkhazia to its territory, and now they have in Armenia. They have a basis in Armenia. They also have this agreement with the Armenian government. It is CTS, something like that. It's like former Soviet Union countries. It's an agreement between Soviet Union countries, and now they're in Azerbaijan. So Russia is well established itself in South Caucasus, and I don't think they're going to leave. And the reason why I am saying that, others are saying that, because if you take United Kingdom colonized so many countries, but not around its border. Whereas Russia, what is Russia doing historically? They're always creating as like a buffer zone around their own sort of borders. So Russia is to ensure that Russia is not it doesn't have any border with any sort of countries that are not quite friendly with Russia. So we are the satellite. So there was a Russia previously in Soviet Union time. And there were 14 of us, satellite countries around Russia, protecting Russia from sort of NATO countries, from Western countries. So even former United Kingdom Foreign Secretary Sir Malcolm Riskin confirmed ages and ages ago when we met with him that Russia always creates this buffer zone around its borders. And Nazrin Jan mentioned about diaspora. It's been well-known fact that diaspora is definitely sponsoring Armenian terrorism. Diaspora is controlling Armenia, and although so many Azerbaijanis, and I am saying it confidently, and I know that there are so many non-Azerbaijanis are here. There are so many Azerbaijanis would like to live in peace with Armenia, because whether we like it or not, we are neighbors. We're not going to go anywhere. Armenians are going to live in Armenia. Azerbaijanis are going to live in Azerbaijan. We do not have choice. We have to live together, whether we like it or not. But we have a choice. We have a choice. We're going to hate each other, and so it's very much for Armenia. If they are going to continue to be controlled by a diaspora is never going to let them to live in peace with. Not only with Azerbaijan, but with Georgia as well, because they have got territory claims to Georgia as well. I don't want to say much, but what I would like to do from now on, because the topic of this discussion is territorial integrity. Since Aliyev came out with this statement on 10th of November, Netherlands, as we know, Dutch Parliament, France now are sort of raising so many questions and talking about embargoes or talking about against Azerbaijan and Turkey. And today, I was reading on Twitter 3 people from House of Lords. This is Baroness Cox, as you probably know, so many of you know her. Baroness Cox has been defending Armenians, not because she really cares for Armenians, because if she did care, she would not have advocated this aggression, this terrorism, this vandalism. She's a Christian, and she's evangelical Christian, and so she's using religion she's using religion to sort of highlight this issue in the world arena, in Christian world, that this is a war between Christians and Muslims. And as you know, the Muslim world, especially like Saudi Arabia at the moment, has stopped employing Azerbaijani doctors because up until the war, up until Turkey started helping Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia was employing so many Azerbaijani doctors. As soon as they saw that Turkey is helping and Azerbaijan is winning, they stopped. They said that your qualification, we do not recognize your qualification. You can't come to our country. You can see that across Arab world, like take Palestine, take Hamas, Hezbollah, all of those, and Iran, all of those countries, that Muslim countries, stands by Armenia, not by Azerbaijan. So no one can say that this is a religious war. There is nothing religious in this war. Azerbaijanis say, I don't have religion, I don't belong to any religion, but so many Azerbaijanis say they're Muslim. We have Jews, we have Christians, both Catholic and Protestant and others. We always live in peace. So all of a sudden, House of Lords, Baroness Cox, and few other sort of strong lords who have got strong belief in Christianity came up with this idea that, oh, this is a religious war. So what I would like us to do, so that you have got all these people together, I'm sure there are other people, why don't we join our efforts from now on across the world? That's what we have to do if we want to stop all this, and join our efforts and work together. There's so many Azerbaijanis abroad and so many friends of Azerbaijan and so many people with open-minded, like yourself, that all organize this and work together and stop all this, because these kind of conflicts we're not heading towards a peaceful solution. We're going to keep the peace in Azerbaijan, but I don't know how long for, because I promise you, Armenia will not stop. Armenian diaspora will not stop. They will organize. They're bringing more people from Armenia to they call Stepanaket with Khankandi. They're bringing so many people to Khankandi, to Khojali, that we left to them for them to live, where they committed genocide of Azerbaijanis. We left the land to them. They are bringing so many agents. I don't know. I'm looking forward. Since I've come to Azerbaijan, I don't speak English. So I'm looking for words. There's so many English, so many Armenians they're bringing in to sort of, to establish them, to plant those people in Karabakh, to plot against Azerbaijan again. So our what do you call them? Special. We have got this. What do we call them? It's like a KGB, Azerbaijani. I don't know what's the word for them. That we have to work so hard to protect our people from Armenian terrorism now in our own country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm giving the floor to Anastasia. She wanted to give some comments as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so first of all, I also would like to thank you for organizing such kind of great event, and I'm going also to explain why this is so much important for me. In my understanding, as a journalist, as a political analyst, while I'm talking with different experts all around the globe, including those who are living in the United States, all of them are saying that what is happening now in Armenia and the position of diaspora, Armenian diaspora in all around the world, importantly in France and United States, where it's quite strong, it's because the people with whom they are contacting, the senators, the members of parliament, and not only, these people don't know the real story of Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, etc. For my understanding, it's a bit not even the clear explanation, because almost all people all around the globe, especially the politicians, know very well what is happening in the region. The information is available in the internet and in all official sources. And if we rely to the official UN documents, resolutions, and etc., in all these documents, it's clearly stated that Nagorno-Karabakh and 7 surrounded regions are the part of Azerbaijan. This is the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan Republic. And when the people are saying that those who support Armenia and the independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, they are not well aware about the situation, actually, I do not understand this explanation. So for me, I would also like to listen probably some of you. What do you think how we can probably to raise more awareness about the situation in the region? Because the key argument Armenian diaspora is using now, they are saying that they may happen any kind of ethnic cleansing and etc., how they like to speak about this, about the genocide. That's why for Azerbaijani government, for Azerbaijani diaspora, for Azerbaijani experts, professors, and etc., it's so much important to demonstrate the solidarity of Azerbaijani government to peaceful ideas what Azerbaijan supports. You know all that there's a special schedule what was written in the statement signed by 3 sides, by the Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. There's a clear dates when Armenians have to withdraw its troops and the people from the regions which belong to Azerbaijan and which have to be given under control of Azerbaijan. And we know that in regards to Kalbajar region, for example, Azerbaijan gave 10 more days for the Armenians to have enough time to take out its military staff and its own people. That's why such kind of solidarity and such kind of behavior of Azerbaijani government have to be spread more. So the people there, those who think about probable any kind of ethnic cleansing and etc., can think twice before they're saying this. In the beginning of 19th, when people like to compare what was happening in the 19th and what is happening now against Armenian ethnic Armenians on the Azerbaijani territories, how they like to say, I always try to explain that what was happening in the 19th, Azerbaijani population didn't have a single day to leave their houses. They were forcibly displaced. In that time, many people were killed, brutally killed. We all remember the genocide. It's not only in Khojaly, but in many other spots of Azerbaijan. It's happened. Armenian armed forces in the beginning of 19th brutally killed many Azerbaijanis, forcibly displaced many Azerbaijanis without giving any single day for them to live peacefully. Its own houses, its own territories. But Azerbaijan is giving this possibility for the Armenian government and for the ethnic Armenians. I guess this has to be highlighted at the highest level. In my understanding now what is happening in Armenia, we can see the double face of Nikol Pashinyan, the person who himself signed the statement, trilateral statement, he himself who agreed to give back the Azerbaijani lands without the military way, because without the war, now is calling his own friends, Armenian friends in France, in the United States. It's also he's calling the diaspora to make the pressure on the so-called friends of Armenia to recognize the independence of so-called Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. So there are 2 games which Nikol Pashinyan is playing. On the one hand, he's going to show his support on this statement. His first phase towards Russia, he is waiting for humanitarian support, which he's already receiving. He's trying to position it himself as a peace-loving person, peacemaking person, etc. But on the other hand, he tries to attract other politicians and even the government to recognize the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic independence. And he knows if it happens, all these statements will, all the points in the statements will disappear, and there may happen another war. So this is another game for the internal audience who is asking for his leave from the government. We know there are so many strikes, there are so many demonstrations in Yerevan. The people are approaching the parliament, other administrative buildings, and asking the Pashinyan to leave his position. What he's doing there, he's trying to show these people that there is no another way for this time, but probably in the future the situation can change, can be changed, and he needs just more time. He needs more support from outside. He's also trying to keep his safe place while changing the people who are sitting in the government. He already changed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm sure there will be more new changes within the government. He just wants to make sure that more people can support his position. And today's visit of Russian delegation and Minister of Foreign Affairs Sergei Lavrov to Armenia, it's one of the reasons, I think, and in my opinion, it's to make sure that there is no any kind of possibilities for Armenian government, particularly for Nikol Pashinyan, to try to change any single point in these documents. If it happens, everybody knows that the war immediately will start, and no one already can help Armenian government, not neither Russia, nor any other country, not the United States, nor France. And I saw the question in the chat that there someone, sorry, I don't remember the name, asked about the position of possible position of Joe Biden, we all think that he will be a new president in the United States. I also raised this issue in my conversation with some important Americans politicians, and all of them are saying that until January we will not see any active movement on behalf of the United States, because the situation after the elections and etc. still takes some time, like a couple of months or 3 months, while the new president can take a seat in the White House. And then after Joe Biden has quite nice relations with Azerbaijani president and also with the Armenian government. I mean with the previous government. He has the meetings even in the 2016 when there were 4 days war in April war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. That time he has a conversation with the Azerbaijani side, with the Armenian side, but he's not well, it's my understanding because I don't live in the United States, but I think that he will try to keep the neutral position because the geopolitical situation in the South Caucasus has been changed totally. We see the rising power of Russia and Turkey, two countries who are probably in some cases has different position, but still it's two big powers in the region, and each of these states knows what kind of support and what kind of position it may have in the region if there will be any kind of escalation. That's why, in my understanding, the situation has been changed too much that Iran, Turkey and Russia will try to keep the power within the region without any possibilities for other external powers as the United States or the European Union countries and etc. to be involved from the economic point of sight, from the kind of investment, because there is a big project Blue Dot Network. We know that United States is very much also interested in this project to be implemented also in the South Caucasus and the Caspian region. And I think from this point of view, from economic perspective, the United States and Europe can be involved even more. But from the geopolitical perspective, especially in terms of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict or its further post-conflict development, the United States and Europe will not have much to do in here. It's more about Russia and Turkey. And both of these countries, Russia and Turkey, also support the statement, the agreement, if we may say, trilateral agreement achieved between Russia, Armenia and Azerbaijan to stop the bloody war and to lead in the peaceful negotiation of further resolving. How soon the Azerbaijanis can come back to its own lands and to live there, it will also questionable, because we need at least 1 or 2 years to make all this restoration process. We all saw the videos of all destructions which Armenians did on the occupied territories. They even destroyed all the churches. They destroyed all the mosques. They destroyed all the cultural centers there. So they tried to change the structure of the region without building anything. And as my colleague previously said, that if they were thinking about these territories to be belonging to them, why they did not construct any single building, any single region, I don't know, cultural center, and etc. They destroyed everything. And Azerbaijan now has to, first of all, reduce and remove all of these mines. It has to be landmines cleaning. There's still so many bombs left after the Armenia left these territories. And the second, we have to reconstruct everything, infrastructure, any kind of new routes, transport routes, economic project, and this after the people have to come back. But there is one more, I'm just going to finish my speech, one more question which I'm still thinking about. It's a future coexistence, because even if there's an official agreement between the government that we have to think about the future coexistence, the level of Azerbaijani phobia in Armenia and on the territories where the Armenians are still live, Azerbaijani territories, it's too big, it's too large. People, I can say, even they hate the Azerbaijanis. They used to be growing with this understanding, because Armenian government did all possible things to pursue these people, that Azerbaijanis are enemies, that there is no any possible way to live together. And sometimes when I read the comments which Armenians are publishing on the internet and the Twitter and the Facebook and etc., I'm getting crazy, because they're such a normal thing. They're explaining such a crazy stories which had never happened, but their government explained these stories as the key, the core understanding of Azerbaijani people. So for me, it's quite difficult to understand how two peoples can find the common language and live together without any police even, because I don't know, because Azerbaijani people, they're peace-loving. We used to live before in Soviet time, and we are ready to live together. But we feel these hatreds from the Armenian side, and it's quite difficult for me to understand how we can live together, coexist, not only in the liberated territories, but as my colleague previously said, in Armenia, together with Armenians. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. I am actually going to address a couple of questions that weren't really addressed all that much, and then I'm going to make some comments about this organization. Give the floor to Ben. He, I think, may wish to weigh in on the Joe Biden issue especially, and just to wrap up and conclude, and if anyone wants to stay and continue discussing after, that's great. I just want to make sure that we address a couple of questions before everyone leaves. So actually, I'll start with a couple of Nesrin's questions from earlier. One, the first is, what is effective in changing people's mind or making them more open-minded? From the experience of publishing a lot on this issue, in the United States specifically, there's just been not a lot of information in general about the region at all. So actually, answering basic questions is a great place to start. And then most people, even if they have a very strong opinion, generally don't even have basic information about what the two countries are, where they are, what they are, what their background is. So addressing even basic issues and assuming that even if people hear something from the media, they're not necessarily biased explicitly, they're just uninformed or misinformed. So the basic thing is to just provide them balanced, accurate information about what's going on without necessarily even giving your opinion, saying this, this, and this. The next step is to start raising doubts about the narratives that are being sold. And that's just providing, let's say, some things that, well, Azerbaijan is an Islamist state that is oppressing minorities. So the idea is to explain, well, do you know what is the makeup of Azerbaijan? Who are the people? What is their history? What about, have you heard the perspectives of this community, this community, this community? Do you know that they have issues with this country because, and despite what you might believe, and do you realize that this is not accurate because they're Muslim majority, but they're they're very secular and they have their own tradition that's distinct from other countries. And so it's slow. It's not going to, you can't change everyone's mind overnight, especially if they're already kind of married to a particular narrative. But you can start raising questions, giving them accurate information without too much emotion in it on your own side. Point them to resources, point them to other perspectives, encourage them to interact with people from different backgrounds and hear how they advance their own cause. Are they politely engaging, or are they ranting about the other side? Are they able to bring something positive to the discussion? I think the best thing is greater exposure to accurate information and to different voices. That's the bottom line. You can't just suddenly make someone who's heard only one perspective all their lives flip to a completely different perspective, but you can start getting them to become more open to hearing new information. And I think that's very possible from my experience. Second question, whether there is an active coordination between Armenian government or some entity in Armenia and the diaspora. I think it's very likely. To some level, but diaspora is also not completely monolithic. So there may be a core group of coordinated efforts, but that doesn't mean that every member of the diaspora is a drone answerable to some central committee. I think it's actually a mistake to think of it that way, because then there is a huge opportunity loss in engaging with people who are not that politically active, who are sympathetic to their cause because their families in there or whatever, but are not necessarily completely hateful or brainwashed. So there has to be a balance between figuring out who are the active doctrinaires who are driving the cause, and who are the regular people who might be open to some human level engagement. And even if you ultimately agree to disagree about larger issues, who might be open to discussing some specific level of cooperation on some specific aspects of what's going on, or who might be critical of the way their government has handled it or whatever. So I'd caution very much for a more nuanced approach, even with diaspora or whoever else, because always you can identify voices that do not subscribe to the 100% of the official narrative, whatever it is in any society. So if you want to have changes, you have to work with those voices no matter what society we are talking about, and not be monolithic about how we see people. Now that brings me to the third question, the issue with Turkey. Several people asked about Turkey's role in this conflict, because there has been an overwhelming amount of information that makes it sound like Turkey has been very actively involved, and to what extent it has benefited. And in my opinion, those are two very different questions, because a country can benefit without necessarily being actively involved, or at least not involved in those ways that people believe that it is. And this is, I think, is what's going on here. Turkey has not actually been an active party to this conflict from the very beginning of the conflict. In fact, it has largely been disinterested in the territorial disputes between Armenia and Azerbaijan, even though Turkey has had a long and warm historical relationship with Azerbaijan. There's been a lot of historical engagement. There are common roots, cultural roots, and there's been a very high level of trade as well. But when it comes to military issues, the conflict itself has been between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Turkey's latest involvement has actually been in response to some of the Armenia-Turkey issues rather than Azerbaijan-Armenia issues. And that's a separate conflict. That doesn't mean it's anything less worth discussing, understanding. But essentially, Armenia has tried to tie Turkey to Azerbaijan in this issue. Turkey responded with respect to its own interest vis-a-vis Armenia. Turkey's involvement has been limited to what Azerbaijan has asked for it. Turkey does benefit from Armenia's uninvolvement in this issue, and certainly does benefit if Russia becomes less aggressively involved, but that doesn't mean that does not automatically mean military involvement in the region at all. It means greater economic level of trade, possibly greater engagement on in general with the region, which brings us to the controversial peace agreement, because there's a lot of concern on both sides, pro-Azerbaijani side about Russia's peacekeepers, and kind of a lot of the people concerned about Turkey's role, about whether Turkish peacekeepers, what role they are going to play. And the truth is this, as controversial as the involvement of both countries is, they kind of balance each other out. Each country has less of an incentive to try to escalate a physical conflict, but they know they're potentially facing its opponent in other areas in that same field. So it looks like Azerbaijan is actually going to be the driving force here, not Russia or Turkey for that matter. And Azerbaijan's interest is to see a much greater deal of economic investment and prosperity. It wishes to attract investors. You can't attract investors if there's an active conflict going on, no matter who the parties involved are, whether they're your allies or your enemies, and so forth. So it's actually in Baku's best interest to keep the situation stable and peaceful, and with that it has its leverage with both countries to balance it out in that way. Yes, it's of course possible that there still can be skirmishes, escalations, third-party interference. All of that deserves greater discussion, but so far we are seeing that the countries are seeing a far greater interest in economic volume of trade than another conflicts that can get out of hand and become unmanageable. Russia and Turkey have managed to, their relations in general are complicated. We see that globally in this particular situation. I actually think Azerbaijan is managing the situation as best as it's possible, and things will get only better when you see other countries coming into the region. The more other countries are involved economically, the less there is incentive for any one party to try to disrupt this. They will want to benefit. They will want a slice of the pie, which cannot happen if there is a high risk of escalation. By the same token, the more Azerbaijan has improved economic relations with other countries, the less it is reliant on any one country, no matter what it is in any sense of that word, which is best for its own interest, actually. But also for everyone concerned about any one external party playing a disproportional role in the region. So, with respect to these comments, I'll let Ben handle Joe Biden and some of the U.S. political and military concerns here. I wanted to actually discuss the direction of this meeting, which I thought was wonderful. The exchange of ideas was fascinating, respectful, diverse. There were a lot of questions raised. Not all of them we can answer in one meeting, which brings me to our point. We are trying to make the point of this meeting was to launch a Caucasus journalist network, which will focus on regional issues, not just specifically Azerbaijan, but everything involving Caucasus and its challenges, opportunities, future, past, present. We are looking to continue with the current group and attract anyone else from any background who is a journalist or an analyst who is open-minded, interested in writing or discussing these issues. So there are several specific things we are looking to do. One is to create a WhatsApp group for anyone and an email list for anyone interested in receiving further information, sharing information, exchanging ideas with everyone else. we are going to be providing an access to database with articles from both Republic Underground and other journalists who've written on this topic and whose writing has been fairly well balanced. Basically, our idea is to counter outright propaganda and to provide accurate information, exchange ideas, and provide voices to people who are interested in the issue to weigh in or to explore. So we'll provide the articles that you can safely refer to because you know that they're fact-checked. Even you don't necessarily have to agree with everything, with every point of analysis, but you know that it's not information that's been plagiarized or that's been inaccurate or wide or unverified or just plainly, completely self-serving without any value. So and you can refer it for further research. You can quote it, cite it, and just use it as a launching pad for your own work. So that will be something we'll be distributing in that listserv and WhatsApp group. Second issue, we are hoping to get everyone engaged with each other, and not just with me and Ben, but also with each other in terms of bringing them to your programs. If you have any, quoting each other's work, working together on joint research, joint articles, facilitating bringing these issues to light in the mainstream media, inviting mainstream journalists to join us from bigger publications, even biased ones, as long as they're open to hearing new perspectives and open to being educated and even at least balancing their own work with other perspectives. And again, we're not looking to make it into this space that's, like just a safe space. We are looking to be challenged. We are looking to exchange different points of views, but they have to be civil, respectful, and everyone should be looking for providing accurate information to the best of their ability, rather than driving some completely political agenda and deliberately distorting their writing to subscribe to some point of view. So even if people disagree on some or issues, they're more than welcome to join, to discuss, to express interest, just to listen and to learn, to provide resources to each other. So that's another aspect. We're hoping to create this specific dynamic. Additionally, we are looking to continue with these events as Republic Underground. We want to continue these discussions because there is no way to address every issue in one meeting. There's been many great ideas, and each one of them deserves its topic. We are hoping to do it at least once a month. If anyone wants to work with us and rotate, we can do that more frequently. But we are hoping that the next issue will address some of the geopolitical issues raised by Dr. Musmar, as well as concerns about third-party involvement, Russia, Iran, Turkey, what role do they have to play, and other potential third parties, US, European Union, OSCE. All this will be addressed in the following event, and anyone who wants to come in is welcome. So anyone who wants to write short presentations, anyone who wants to have questions, anyone who has thoughts, anyone who has ideas about how to address common concerns on any one aspect of these discussions, they're more than welcome to come. That's going to be our next event at some point in December in a similar format. We'll hopefully work out the technical issues a little bit, but expect the same dynamic of being able to engage freely and to talk openly to continue in that next event. Anyone who wishes to join the WhatsApp group and to have access to these additional resources, if you haven't already sent your contact information, you can send it either publicly in the chat here or to me or to Ben. We shared our information. You can find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter. We're always also available to answer any private inquiries. You can send it privately to us as well. We'll be also distributing this video to anyone who has missed part of it or who just wants to have access to it. We'll share it in the group. I know some people have joined late or had problems, technical issues, so you'll have access to the entire discussion, and you can contact us later and continue the discussion of the event in the email server or in the WhatsApp conversation or future events. If you have speakers that you would like to bring in to propose future topics for conversations, future panels that you'd like to invite people to just to watch or to be a part of, that's also the space for sharing that information, because ultimately the goal is to create a very viable platform and a network for sharing. Furthermore, the Republic Underground is open for business. If you'd like to submit a piece for publication, you can reach us directly and share your work. We'll be happy to publish it. And furthermore, besides just publishing, we also have a radio station and potentially a podcast. And Ben can brief you more on that. And with that, I'm actually giving the floor over to him. He'll talk about Joe Biden and he'll talk about these other opportunities.
All right. Well, I thank everybody. This event has been amazing. I love seeing so many faces from all over the world. This is exactly what I wanted when I started Republic Underground and actually Timberwolf Phoenix. For those of you that don't know, I started both, and then we acquired some other companies, and they all came under the umbrella of Timberwolf Phoenix. So if you see that, it also pertains to Republic Underground. There are a couple of things that I would like to address. I was spending more time listening than I was talking, but I have some things that I'd like to add. Telegram is also an option for communication. So if you have Telegram as opposed to the other social media apps and connectivity apps, we can also start a Telegram group. Please provide your information in the chat. We'll go through and we'll create the group. When it comes to publishing things on Republic Underground, I'm different than most other publishers. You should probably know this. Very few people do. During the conflict, we actually opened it up for Armenians to submit fact-check articles, to submit articles however they wanted, whatever they wanted to say. We offered them a voice too, and we didn't get a single article. Not one. Got some broken windows and some gunshots and some other things, but we didn't get any articles. My point behind that is I want everybody to know that I don't censor what goes on the site. The only thing that happens is we check it for grammatical accuracy and make sure that your name's given a byline. So we don't make any money off of that. You know, if you want your work featured, even if you've never been a journalist and you just have something like that you feel you can write down that the world needs to hear, or something you just want to voice out, we can even walk you through putting your words into an article format. Love to see that. Love to give people an opportunity to voice their opinions on everything. That's the only way that real peace works. You know, please understand, my entire life has been centered around war and destruction. 20 years in the military. Not only that, but I also put 7 years in as a cadet, as a child, from the age of 12 until I joined the military. So actually 9 years as a cadet, excuse me. I understand this very well, and I understand what happened here, and I understand what continues to happen here. So let me go into what's happening with Mr. Biden and the tentative transition of power, and I say that only until it's verified here in the United States. I do not anticipate that Joe Biden is going to rock the boat too much in the Caucasus region. I expect that when it comes to this, unfortunately, he's going to be a lame duck. And that might be good for all of us, to be real honest with you. He's not going to stir Russia up. He's not going to stir Turkey up. And, well, you know, he's trying to make things okay with Iran. And my own political views aside, you know, if he can find a way to bring all of us peace, then that's great. What I don't want him to do is to come in and try and spearhead this effort, because it's going to be the last 30 years all over again. I was able to deflect some of what was going on in Washington during this conflict. You know, President Trump made what amounts to an electoral play when it came to the Armenian population in the United States in his comments in New Jersey and following. And there's enough division in the United States that the Armenian diaspora has seized into that and tied it in. And unfortunately, they have garnered the support of international celebrities and things of that nature. But, you know, there are people out there that are watching your work and have heard your voices. I was asked to wait until after he left and the secured channel was closed to let you know that Senator Cruz heard your voices today. I was live streaming this to some friends of ours in Congress, and we're trying to sway the narrative here in the United States. We're trying to do damage control, and it's extremely difficult. We can't do it without people like you. You know, I wish I could tell you that there weren't physical attacks and we could sleep soundly at night here in America, and that this conflict didn't affect all of us here. But whether it's family ties, friendships, or even physical attacks here in America, we're all feeling this. And if the rest of the world isn't going to speak up, then it's going to be up to us. But if we use all of our combined resources, we can find a way to make this happen. We have decades of misinformation that we have to counter, and we need allies in this fight. We've been fighting long and hard with you, and we'll continue to do so. But the more voices that are not afraid to speak their mind, the more of a positive impact it's going to have. And I'm not saying that we all have to agree, because frankly, if I wanted a group full of people that agreed with me, I'd just call up some of my old friends from various publications and we could have a boring chat. But my favorite people are the people that I don't agree with on all of my points, and I don't agree with theirs. Just because we don't agree with each other doesn't mean we can't get along and be friends. It just means we have differing opinions in life and different views and different experiences. So, you know, this isn't a recruiting drive. I'm not going to ask you for money. This is actually, you know, me reaching out to say, I need your support. We want your voices. People hear our voices. I want your voices. I want your stories. I want your analysis. I've written hundreds of thousands of pages of analysis. I've sat in the Senate briefings. I've sat in the Pentagon briefings. I've sat in with vice presidents. I've sat in. I talk to the Secretary of State on a regular basis because of what I do outside of Republic Underground. You know, maybe it's time that some people realize that I'm not just the guy that runs Republic Underground. I'd like you all to know that I am directly tied into Washington in more ways than I care to be. But I want to use that to the benefit of ending this conflict as peacefully as possible. On the military side of things, there were so many lies from Armenia that I couldn't record videos or type fast enough. And that's the truth. I argued for 2 weeks straight about cluster munitions, and I had people just thrash me all over social media. And you know, why is it that I can speak that out, and the New York Times or the LA Times or any of those jerks, you know, if they don't say it, it doesn't matter. And 2 weeks later, here I am laughing my ass off when I realized that, or when they realized that I told the truth, and they all look stupid. Trust me, I keep a scorecard. That's the point. We don't need them. I've written in them. I've been featured in the New York Times, and I'm regularly in the Jerusalem Post. Irina was just in Newsweek. I've been on PBS. If you saw the PBS broadcast about Azerbaijan, where they all of a sudden changed their narrative on it, that was because I crapped all over them and told them that if they didn't change their narrative, I was going to go public with the fact that they were lying. And those are verifiable facts. So if you think we're just barking into the wind, we're not. I'm giving you a platform to make your voices heard. I will continue to fight. I will continue to operate this as long as, you know, it takes. I base all of this. The servers belong to me. The names belong to me. The names belong to Irina and my team. You know, if you have something you want to say or you want done, let us know and we'll make it happen. I'm giving you full range to do whatever you want. As far as publishing, I want your opinions. Let's stir up controversy. Let's rewrite it all, because Armenia has done a really good job of causing a disaster. And having said that, I'm gonna relinquish the floor back to Irina, and she can share their database information. I'm gonna have to close the meeting before long, because we're running about an hour and a half over, but I want to thank all of you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email, WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, or telephone. I'm available 24 hours a day. If it's important, and if it's not, you'll get an email back from me in the morning. I'm extremely responsive. I look forward to hearing all of you, and I look forward to working with all of you. This was amazing. It's amazing to see what happens when you can get everybody from all over the world involved. So with that, I thank you very much. I hope you all stay blessed, and let's see what we can accomplish.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoyed the conversation, the discussion. We will be working on creating the various groups and giving everyone an opportunity to join. I am right now going to share with you the link to the database that I mentioned, and I'll also send it later in the groups for those who've missed it. And if you have any questions about anything, you can also reach out to us about any of the pieces there. This is the link you can check out. It's got a collection of the pieces that Republic Underground has published. We have published individually, and other journalists have also contributed that give a fair view of the situation. You don't have to agree with every aspect or analysis of it, but at the very least, you know that it's there to provide information and not to try to mislead or deceive. Thank you very much for joining us. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Stay tuned for our next event. Please spread the word in the media with journalists. Anyone who is open-minded, interested, wants to join, they're welcome to do that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Benjamin and Irina and the diaspora and everyone, and Dr. Usmar and everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and Ben will keep you also posted about the radio and podcasts and other opportunities coming up. He can share that information later in the group.
Yes, I'm actually working on establishing an online broadcast station. So we'll that's very new and very fresh in the works.
Irina, can I just point one thing, very important thing for Azerbaijani working and living in France? We have a big problem. We have actually a very big problem to access French media. And you know, it's come at this point that even our ambassador officially blaming now Armenian bad lobby, Armenian lobby bad influence in France, which is striking actually a French position. But for so far and for now, at this point, we weren't able to find access to big media. Of course, we'll continue to doing that. But you know, the Russia Today, probably in French, is probably all media the only media who permit from time to time to access some Azerbaijani to have little debate like me I had a couple of days ago. So if maybe it's not your level, but if someone, whosoever of you have some enters or friends or maybe by vice versa influences, you know, like it's working in democracy, European democracy, it's clientelism, what we call it. If you have some access to media working in France, if even it's not French-speaking media, I think we have to take every opportunity we have, taking in account that Armenian lobby passed in offensive, moving forward, doing some provocations in French Parliament and Senate, and unfortunately we have a few deputies and senators backing Azerbaijani position, and most of them are just pro-Armenian, and that's a mess. That's a really mess and big problem for us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately,
may I add something, because it's to do with Zaurbey's comment. I suppose that we almost all have the same issue. Like we have had the same issue in Finland during the war, that nothing that we've tried to write in regards to the war from the Azerbaijani side has been published anywhere. I know personally the Finnish National Broadcasting Company CEO, which is like the state-owned broadcasting company, and I contacted her, and then she told some of her news reporters that they need to contact me and discuss with me. And one of them did, and he was so aggressive and so aggressively pro-Armenian that he actually hung up on me. I mean, he started yelling at me, and then he hung up on me. So I had to go back to the CEO, and now let's see what we can do. But like the atmosphere is so toxic, and I suppose I'm glad to hear what Irina and Ben and anyone else has to say about this. But I would also suggest that we might even have one session of ours like this in the future, where we would discuss how to get our voices heard in the media, among the politicians, within the civil society. Because the thing is, it's not the neutral ones that are difficult to approach, but those ones who have fixed ideas, like a lot of the journalists and news reporters, politicians, even the representatives of civil society seem to have very fixed opinions about pro-Armenia and against Azerbaijan, that they are not even going to listen, or they are starting to yell or hang up like this news reporter did. So, yeah.
And another point I want to point to, guys, I think it's as Azerbaijani or people who helping Azerbaijan. Thank you very much, Benjamin and Michael and another, you know, with some of us Azerbaijani and Mr. Mismar, some of us Azerbaijani, Pakistani friends also, and some of us are ethnically Azeris like me, but some of us as Anastasia Russian, but it's also Azeri because it's our native country for all. But one thing I think we have to understand, and I understand that during my research about a situation of beginning century and my compatriots expelling from Armenia, and also all that war which lead and trying everywhere to write in Twitter, in everywhere, and will continue. Of course, it's like struggle which not end. But one thing we have to understand, that 105 years passed from the first clash, big clash, so-called Armenian question. and there is short time we are in war with that people. So that's not gonna definitely finish. Unfortunately, I hope so. We can always hope so. We can always hope that we're asking about demilitarization of Karabakh, which is the main point, because if Karabakh is demilitarized and any peacekeeping forces, Russian or whatsoever, so I think that will be end. But until that point, I think it's not finished, and we have to be aware of that and struggle. Unfortunately, struggle continues, and unfortunately, we may also face new challenges, even clashes. And I don't know which is exactly the solution, but I think Azerbaijan have no alternative. As the only one, my opinion is being only alternative. It became a very strong state. I make a parallel like Israel, and everyone understands what I'm pointing, because we have to guarantee our independence and integrity of our territory from any kind of force, external. Today is Armenia, but tomorrow that may be another force. So unfortunately, we are facing third war in 1 century, 105 years, as I told, and that it's very, 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 very deep point, important point, I think, to have in mind and think about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I completely appreciate what you're saying about this. In terms of geopolitics, yes, I believe the more Azerbaijan is perceived as a country in which there is economic and other interests besides being seen from a distance as a country involved in some conflict, the less there's an opportunity to scapegoat it and isolate it in the media, because more countries will be invested in its welfare, and therefore they'll have less incentive to just start join information campaigns against it. So I think that's very important. Second, Republic Underground is happy to publish pieces in French as well, and with the media today, anything in any language can be found in the search, and the media can come across it even if it takes some time. So at least it's something, it's an alternative. We will, of course, also keep trying to reach out to foreign media, but the stronger our network is, the harder it will be to ignore our voices in general. This is how networks work, because the more we spread the word, the more media from other countries cites to our work and what we are doing, the more difficult it will be for the French media to ignore what's happening somewhere else when it's discussing relevant issues. So that's also part of the issue. And as for the workshop, I think that's a great idea, and Ben and I can work on developing something like that very soon.
Actually, I just came up with a solution for those of you that are having trouble in France and other areas where your media is blocking those things. I know that it's much easier to get emails out. So what I'm going to do is we're going to work together. I'm going to get some information from all of you following this. And starting this week, we'll start publishing a newsletter that goes out in the email that features all of the articles, and we can even tie in some articles from other locations so that you can get a mix of what's actually going on. We can publish them in whatever language you need them to be in, and I can send them directly to your email. That way we can bypass the media blockade. And with that, if everybody is done, I think we will conclude this. It's been an amazing opportunity. I thank you all very much, and I look forward to meeting with each and every one of you again.
Absolutely, very soon. And we'll be working on getting all the things out, the WhatsApp group, the next event, the workshop, and we'll definitely be in touch, and you know how to reach us. We look forward to many pieces from you very soon.
Thank you. It's wonderful. Thanks for opportunity, and I love the fact that it was a very open discussion. There's so many big elephants in the room, the biggest one being Russia. And, I am very critical of that. Russia can never ever be a peacekeeper, but throughout any sort of social media activity that I have myself, you know, it's hard for me to keep that out of the picture. So I am actually censoring myself constantly. But it is, you know, that maybe like next meeting we could address this topic, that when you're trying to help your country, but you're not extremely happy with things, the way that things are going, how can you help? I mean, that's really one big question for me. I don't want you to answer now, but you know, it would be wonderful to devote a meeting to that.
I agree. I think that is something that I have to consider on a regular basis, even living here in America. So I think that I think you may be onto something, and we look forward to other people coming up with themes and ideas for the next meeting as well, so we can work together on figuring that out. And with that, I'm going to close the meeting, and I really hope that everybody stays safe, and I hope that the conflict stays down, and we can all take a breath or two before anything else picks up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.